What's going on, everybody? It's Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast over here, coming to you for UFC Vegas 45, last event of the year. This is the total takedown. If it's your first time tuning in, we go over the card. We look at sides. No sides. We did sides. We did sides on Monday. We go over totals. We're looking at how long we think these fights are going to last, who's going to finish, where's the upside, and take a different approach to getting some value out of this UFC card. So let's jump straight on into this thing. First fight of the night, lightweight matchup, Jordan Leavitt taking on Matt Sales. And we've got a total here set at 2.5. The over 2.5 is plus 120. The under 2.5 is minus 140. The under 2.5 is really taking a beating right now. It's getting some serious love from the betting public here, and I kind of agree with that. I understand. Jordan Leavitt has a clear, decisive grappling advantage. Matt Sales has a clear and decisive striking advantage. Both these guys are more than capable of finishing when they are in their own realm. There's the big question of Matt Sales, what kind of shape he's coming in. Will he make weight? All those kinds of issues, because I guess he ballooned up to like 250 pounds or something like that. I'm sure you've heard about it all week, but it's something we got to consider. Basically, if either of these guys is able to get their game going in their realm, they should be able to finish. I kind of like the under 2.5. Heavyweight fight up next. Don'Tale Mayes taking on Josh Parisian. Total set at 1.5 for this one. Actually, it looks like more prominently 2.5 out there these days. Over 2.5 looks like minus 105. Under 2.5 is minus 125. So juice to the under for most of these books, it looks like. And again, I kind of have to agree with that. I like my greasy heavyweight over 1.5s as much as the next guy does. We tried to get there last week. Unfortunately, Tai Tuivasa had other plans. But this would be a spot where I was going to have a tough decision on that 1.5. Luckily, we're talking 2.5, and I can comfortably say I think under. Don'Tale Mayes is a freak athlete. This guy has huge physical gifts. He's just an absolute monster in there. Josh Parisian has no defensive capabilities whatsoever. This man uses his face to block his opponent's punches. He's a volume striker. He has some finishing upside of his own if he can get the grappling going. His top game is nasty, and he does have fast hands. So both these guys absolutely could be finished. The only problem for me is Don'Tale Mayes is not a guy that you finish easily. He's very durable. He's a big, slow-moving iceberg in there. So I don't think Josh Parisian is going to be the guy to get him out of there. This is more Don'Tale finishing Josh Parisian than anything for this prediction. Don'Tale Mayes can definitely get lured into a staring contest. So if Parisian wants to slow it down a little bit, this could easily fly over that total. So not a fight I want any exposure to whatsoever from a totals perspective here, but I kind of think the under is the one that gets home. Featherweight fight up next, Rocky Pennington taking on Macy Chiasson, and I can save us a little bit of time here. Death, taxes, and Rocky by decision. That's how these things go. Raquel Pennington has only lost to the best, the absolute GOATs, champions, contenders for the title. Like, those are the only women who beat Raquel Pennington, and not many of them finish her. Macy Chiasson, even though she's a bit of a finisher herself, she's had some success. She's big, she's powerful, she's long. She still is not coming along at the speed that we would like to see. She's got that finishing offense, but we know Rocky specializes in stifling that finishing offense. She's going to make this thing a grind, push it up against the fence. A lot of this fight is going to take place in the clinch or maybe even some grappling on the mat. So because of that, this thing is probably going to slow itself down and head on over. 2.5 is the total. Over is minus 275. Under is plus 235. The under is getting some love. I know there's a lot of people out there thinking with this fight at 145, that really favors Macy Chiasson. She should be able to finish Raquel. Again, I would be more willing to trust the toughness and durability of Rocky Pennington, but minus 275 is not a price tag that I'm personally interested in playing. Featherweight fight up next. Charles Air Jourdain taking on Andre Ewell, welcoming him to the featherweight division. We have a total at 2.5 once again, and it's basically a pick'em. I guess slight juice to the over, minus 125 to the over 2.5, minus 110 to the under, minus 105 to the under in some places. So just a little bit of love for the over 2.5 here in this spot. And this is another one where, honestly, I have no idea what to make of this fight. We've seen Charles Jourdain clubbed, we've seen him rocked, we've seen him knocked down, we've seen Andre Ewell finished, we've seen him completely gassed out and helpless off of his back. So both these guys can be finished, and while Jourdain has only been finished once out of his 4 professional losses, he's been this close a couple of other times. So we can't completely take it off the table, and eventually testing that chin is gonna catch up to him. Andre Ewell is hell on wheels early in these things. He's got that 6-inch reach advantage. He's going to try to put it on Jourdain quick, and Jourdain is the type of guy that ramps up when he wants to. Late in the fight, he can definitely take over. So I don't think a 2.5 is safe in this spot. I would be looking at violence because both these guys, especially early, will absolutely have what it takes to knock the other one out. And who knows, Andre Ewell up an extra 10 pounds, that might give him the extra pop on his punches he needs to force either a gunfight or get the knockout himself. Women's flyweight up next. Sijara Eubanks taking on Melissa Gatto. Total setting at 2.5 on this one. Again, over is -200, under is +150. The under once again taking a little bit of action. It looks like money is coming in on the under, forcing it down from +170 to +160. I kind of agree with that. Melissa Gatto is definitely a finisher. We've seen Sijara Eubanks at flyweight be a bit of a finisher herself, and there's always questions surrounding her weight cut, her cardio, things of that nature. She got a first round finish last time out, so that doesn't answer a lot of questions about how she can go a hard-fought 15 minutes against a fighter who's really looking to take her head off. Melissa Gatto has been known to accept bottom position, so there is a chance that Sijara Eubanks just grinds out an over type of win. But I feel like if Gatto is winning this fight, she's probably rocking Sijara on the feet or probably getting something going on the ground and getting a submission of her own. Sijara Eubanks' ground and pound is solid. Her striking is decent. Both these women probably can stand to be finished, although toughness really plays in here. Gatto hasn't lost in her professional career. She's 7-0-2, so we haven't even seen what it looks like when she does get finished. Maybe this is a sneaky spot to abuse the women's division and go over. -200 for most women's over 2.5 is kind of a steal. I'm not betting it myself because I've got a lot of questions about where Gatto is, and I especially want to see Sijara Eubanks on the scale before I make any decisions about this particular fight, but I will lean to the over. Heavyweight fight, Justin Tafa taking on Harry Hunt-Sucker, and this one's got violence written all over it, folks. The total is set at 1.5. These big boys have +160 to the over 1.5 and -180 to the under 1.5. Money is coming on heavy on that under 1.5, and it's because of Harry Hunt-Sucker. The way this guy fights, all he does is blow forward towards his opponents. He charges them. He fires 1-2s right down the pipe until one of them falls. That's all he does. He is a glass cannon of epic proportions at the heavyweight division. He can't take a big power shot coming. A well-timed counter is all it takes to put him down, but boy, does he hit hard. When he is on point, he hurts people. He's in a lot better shape coming into this fight than the last time we saw him, so you can only expect that power is going to be a little bit more accentuated, and he's taken on Tafa, who's struggled in the UFC, if we're being honest. So both these guys can definitely get the finish, but Tafa has that crazy durability that we've seen. He's only been knocked out the one time, so I don't know if Hunt-Sucker hits hard enough to take Tafa out of there. I know Tafa is more than talented enough to land a slick counter and put Hunt-Sucker down, so I guess the finishing upside is definitely there, but -185 to go under 1.5 is pretty damn steep. This isn't quite the home run that Bruno Silva and Jordan Wright was just a week or so ago, in my opinion. If this one gets a little bit over that 1.5 and breaks a bunch of people's chalk laying parlays, I would not be shocked because Hunt-Sucker may come in with a different game plan this time around, considering how his last couple fights went and the kind of shape that he is in. But that's a hair on the back of the neck. I have no reason to expect that from a man who we've seen blitz forward constantly his entire career. For him to change up the entire game plan would be a bit of a shock. But for some reason, I feel like it's coming. So I'm not touching this one. Bantamweight fight up next. Raoni Barcelos welcoming Victor Henry to the UFC. And this is a very interesting fight. Raoni Barcelos, one of the most well-rounded fighters we've seen in a long time. Love this guy, but he's getting older. Victor Henry, a very hot prospect, a guy that a lot of people are excited about seeing in the UFC. Total set at 2.5. The over is even money, +100, -125 to the under 2.5. And I would agree with the violence on this one because Raoni Barcelos coming off a loss, he's going to want to get back on track. If Henry isn't ready for the UFC, Raoni Barcelos is the kind of guy that is going to boot him from the organization as quickly as he possibly can. He'll use this as a statement, as a highlight reel. He will get back on track with no problems. On the flip side of this thing, Victor Henry is the kind of guy that if he shows up, he's going for it. He's going all out. Remember when Alex Hernandez made his UFC debut and flatlined his dude? Like, that's what Victor Henry's going to be looking to do. I don't see him playing safe. I don't see him trying to win minutes. I think he's going to come in here and bring the fight to Raoni Barcelos, and that's going to force it. He either gets a finish, or I think Raoni probably finishes him. So I'll say a violence on this one. Let's go under 2.5. The final fight on the preliminary card is Dustin Stoltzfus taking on Gerald Meerschaert, GM3 himself. Total set at 2.5. The over is plus 110. The under is minus 130. And again, I'm going to have to lean towards this under here. And it's just the way Gerald Meerschaert fights. This guy walks his opponents down. He gets his hands going. And as soon as he's got you hurt or rocked, he puts you on the mat and taps you out. Dustin Stoltzfus is a high-level karate stylist. He's got some good, solid karate kickboxing. And honestly, he's not half bad on the ground. He just got awarded his BJJ black belt. So I think this is a pretty solid fight, and I think people are a little overexcited about Gerald Meerschaert and kind of writing off Dustin Stoltzfus. He showed himself to be willing to at least contend with these UFC boys. I think this might be a spot where he steps up and shines a little bit, but it's one that, again, I'm going to say violence because Gerald Meerschaert kind of makes the fights go that direction, but don't be shocked if this one is a grind. Both these guys are in kind of must-win situations. Gerald's coming in on short notice. Dustin 0-2 in the UFC. They're both really going to want to get this dub, so that means you never really know what's going to happen in there. I'll say under, definitely passing. Cub Swanson taking on Darren. Elkins kicks off the main card portion of our evening. Total set at 2.5. The over minus 157. The under is plus 137, it looks like. So a little bit of market variance here. I see over 160 and plus 120 to the under in a couple of other spots. Now, I kind of like over. I'll be honest, I kind of like over. So Cub Swanson, he's so tough to put away. He's so tough to finish. I know he got body kicked by Giga Chikadze, but that Giga kick, like, that shuts your liver off. There's nothing you can do about that. Before that, it was, I think, all the way back in 2009 when he got knocked out by Jose Aldo. You can't finish Cub Swanson with strikes. He does tap, however. And what we've got is Darren the Damage Elkins, a guy who can take the absolute kitchen sink, and then he takes you down, grapples you until you're exhausted, and beats you to a bloody pulp or chokes you out. The submission upside is there. Darren Elkins can submit Cub Swanson, absolutely. Cub Swanson can absolutely TKO Darren Elkins. He's getting older. He's taking a lot of damage, especially with that scar tissue. We cannot rule out a referee stoppage. So the finishing upside is going to be there on both sides of this thing. But more often than not, I think Darren Elkins probably utilizes his grappling. I think we see a chain wrestling attack. Lots of footwork, lots of movement. This thing hits the ground. Cub Swanson fights his way back up to the feet. Mat returns. And those are the types of things that eat up the clock. So while finishes are definitely on the table, I kind of feel like this one's going over the 2.5. Lightweight fight up next, Carlos Diego Ferreira taking on everybody's new favorite fighter, Mateusz Gamrot. Gamrot, good solid grappler, good strong wrestling, good top position, a big powerful right hand. Carlos Diego Ferreira, BJJ black belt, slick striker, excellent back takes. There's a lot riding on this fight. Total set at 2.5. Over is minus 165. The under is plus 145. Again, a little bit of market variance there. I see it down to plus 125 on the under in some places. But again, I kind of feel like this is a spot where both guys are more than capable of finishing, and we have seen them both finish. Carlos Diego death-gassed in his last fight and got TKO'd. However, that was against an absolute cardio monster in Gregor Gillespie. Mateusz Gamrot isn't really that kind of guy. I think Mateusz Gamrot is going to focus on positional awareness. If he gets Carlos Diego down, he's probably going to grind minutes off of that top position. If this thing is striking, Carlos Diego is probably going to be the one pushing the action. I know Gamrot's got that big right hand, but I actually think Carlos Diego's probably the better striker of the two. He's got the better boxing of the two. He's more aggressive. That could force a bit of a firefight. And you know what? If Gamrot gets hurt in this thing, Carlos is the type of guy that will finish him and get him out of there in a hurry. So the under terrifies me. I'm going to say over 2.5. But I think there is some value on that plus number to the under. This is one of those weird cards where it all comes down to the game plan. It comes down to what these fighters want to do when they get into the cage, because they're more than capable of doing either thing, and we're not sure which one it is until that cage door closes. Bantamweight fight up next, Raphael Assunção taking on Ricky Simón. Total on this one is 2.5. The over minus 190, the under plus 165, and this is a dead nuts over in my opinion. Ricky Simón is a guy that doesn't finish people. He's a grinder. He's basically a Russian Ov. He takes people down. He chain grapples them. He's got good boxing to close the distance and keep his opponents busy on the feet. He can play a very safe defensive striking game until he closes that range and decides to wrestle. Raphael Assunção, on paper, very good at everything. Very well-rounded. He's been a contender. He's always in that top 5, top 10 conversation, but he's getting older. And getting a 39-year-old bantamweight, that's a problem. His defense probably isn't going to be all the way there. His gas tank probably isn't going to be all the way there. He's going to be a little bit slower. Like, that's just what happens at this weight class. This is Ricky Simón all day. And if it's not Ricky Simón, Raphael Assunção is probably going to be just barely able to contain the man when it comes to a grappling perspective, because Raphael Assunção isn't the biggest finishing threat we've ever seen either. So 2.5 minus 190 to the over. I love that. I think that's a good spot if you're looking for a parlay piece or something along those lines. I really don't mind that at all. We've got women's strawweight, Amanda Lemos taking on Angela Hill. A very intriguing fight here. An interesting, very, very, very strange fight that we have got here. And now that I look at it, a ton of money coming in on the dog. Holy cow, I missed my spot. Total set at 2.5. The over 2.5 minus 230. The under 2.5 is plus 190. And I agree with the over. Again, it's women's MMA. The finishing power isn't normally there, but this is one of the exceptions where the finishing power is there. Amanda Lemos has shown that she is ridiculously powerful at this weight class. She handles women right here. She's incredibly explosive. She's got a tight squeeze, a good submission game. She is a finisher at this class. The problem is she's taken on Angela Hill, someone who is not known for being finished. Hill has never been knocked out. I believe she's been submitted once, maybe twice. She has 10 professional losses, and the majority of those have come by decision. So if anything, she's going to grind her way out and make this thing close. She goes to a split decision with the elites of the division. She is always competing with the very, very best out there. So I think Angela Hill is going to force Lemos to be extended. The question is, what does Lemos do once she is extended? Because if she gasses out after trying to get an early finish, Angela Hill could be primed for a third-round TKO. And I know that's what everybody wants to hear is that sprinkle, baby. But it puts us at a strange spot for the totals. Because with the 2.5, you're giving up that 2.5 minutes at the very end of the round, which is the most crucial for that exhausted third-round TKO to take place. I think the under is there if you want to make the argument for it, because maybe Lemos is just the next big thing. Maybe she is just the monster hiding under the bed, and she comes out here and flatlines Angela Hill like no one's been able to do before. But if she's not, then this thing is probably headed to the over in a hurry, because Angela Hill is able to maintain the distance and the range and slow the pace of the fight down, defend herself, keep herself safe, and really make this impressive and make it close. I think that's probably more what's on the table. I'm going to lean to the over 2.5, but again, not one that I want to bet because we haven't seen Lemos against this caliber of a fighter after that first round, and I don't know how she's going to react to that. Angela Hill could potentially give her that vet lesson on Saturday. Welterweight fight up next. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson taking on Belal. Remember the name Muhammad. Total again set at 2.5. The over is minus 280. The under is plus 240. And I think, again, this is a really strong over. Belal Muhammad is a guy who's been very durable throughout his UFC career. So even if Wonderboy gets off, I think Belal's going to be able to take his best shots and keep coming. Belal, I think, is going to need to, implement a risk-adverse striking game compiled with a grappling attack where he takes Stephen Wonderboy Thompson down, much like Gilbert Burns did, and grind on him as much as humanly possible. The Stephen Wonderboy is the type of guy, though, that he can hit that over-the-shoulder kick at any point in time and spoil the show. He could make this thing go under. He could make it go under in a hurry. But personally, I think that this is going to be a slog. I think we're looking over 2.5. I don't like that number whatsoever, especially with the firepower on the other side with Stephen Thompson. But I do think this one hits the judges' scorecards. Main event time, Derrick Lewis taking on Chris Daukaus. Total set at 1.5 for this bad boy. Over 1.5 is minus 125. The under 1.5 is plus 105. Huge size discrepancy in this one. That's the biggest story for me. Chris Daukaus is everybody's darling, young up-and-comer, taking over the heavyweight division. Derrick Lewis is the guy who's challenged for a title for a couple times. He's been there. He's been around. He showed his power off time and time again. But people realize what you got to do to beat Derrick Lewis, and that's stick and move, play the outside, be faster than him, avoid the bombs, mix in the wrestling. We'll see if Daukaus is capable of that, because if Daukaus goes fire for fire with Derrick Lewis, this thing could go this thing could go under. This thing could go under very, very quickly. I'm tempted on the under here, if I'm being honest. But the problem is Derrick Lewis is actually built for overs. He takes his time. This man knocks people out in the third round, like, regularly. That's what he does. He takes your best shot, and he waits until you slow down to his pace, and then you're a sitting duck for his big old mitts. So I can totally see Chris Daukaus coming out here, trying to be quick, trying to be fast early, and then eventually kind of slowing down. And if Derrick gets moving just a little bit in that second round, that's when things start to get interesting. I could see a second or a third round finish here in this type of spot for either guy, if we're being honest. I don't think it's going the full distance, but I think we might get over that 1.5. It's maybe one of the most terrifying things I've ever looked at, and I might actually pull the trigger on it. It might be a bet that I'm willing to make, but I think the over 1.5 has some merit. We saw in Daukaus' last fight against Shamil that he is more than capable of using his footwork, cutting angles, playing the outside, trying to stay safe against a guy who's bigger, slower, and a bit of a power puncher. He's going to have to do that big time here against Derrick Lewis. I mean, we saw what happened when Chris Curtis tried to rush the wrestling and come in off of a bad shot. Yeah, you don't want to do that with Derrick Lewis. If Daukaus is going to mix in the wrestling or the grappling at all here, you know he's going to take his time. He's going to pick his shots. He's going to make sure he's doing it at the right spot so he doesn't die in the middle of it. This is one of the most terrifying spots you can ever do, because if you go over 1.5, it's a really probably a decent bet, but Derrick Lewis is the kind of guy that can end this fight in 30 seconds. At any point in time, if he touches that chin, this fight is over. So, with caution. I haven't locked that bet in yet. I'll say it right now. I have yet to play a single total on this entire card, but those are my opinions. Those are my leans. Follow me at DieHardMMAPod on Twitter. I will tell you when I lock in any action specifically over there. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. Smash that like button for me. Let's roll.